Welcome to Policing TV and IPA Insight. The hashtag She's IPA and Policing TV is a collaboration to highlight women in policing and police women in the International Police Association. My name is Maj-Britt Rinaldo Ronnebro. I am the former Secretary General of the International Executive Board of IPA, and IPA is the abbreviation of International Police Association. I am your host today, and we are meeting Samantha Alexander from Women of Color in Policing, but she is also a woman that working at the Bedfordshire Police in England. Women in IPA and women in policing is not always seen and neither recognized how they contribute and are part of the police service. And that is one of the reasons behind why we would like to speak with Samantha today. Samantha, you have now been working in the police for a while, but what was the reason and the actions behind why you joined the police?
Hi, Maj-Britt, and it's really pleasure to be here with you today. I've been in policing for almost 24 years now. I started after leaving forensic psychiatry, forensic mental health, where I worked in hospitals in the local area of North London. And I was able to engage with lots of police officers, police staff in secure units. They would be either escorting people to safe places under Section 136 or attending panels where they had to give some, read their statements or supporting any evidence. And always in my conversations with them, they'd be saying, come on, Sam, join the police. You'd be a real good officer. Come on, join the police. And my goal was never to join policing, to be a police officer. However, coming from forensics, I was always interested in that area. My mum sadly had a stroke, and while I was off work as a carer, a role came up for a fingerprint officer, and it jumped out at me. It was like it was meant to be, and I applied. And with the time that it took for vetting, I was successful at the interview, and then I waited for vetting, and that helped me to support my mum with her recovery. And then I came into policing in 2001. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I qualified as a fingerprint expert, and then I went on and stayed at the Met Police, and then I moved over to Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, and Cambridgeshire Police in a different role. I thought that I wanted a break from policing and from forensics. I thought, I'm going to try something different, but actually the call was too strong, and within a year I was back in Bedfordshire Fingerprint Bureau. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. So going through all these different kind of training, education from the beginning, then training, you joined the police, you did quite a lot of interesting things. A fingerprint expert is a profession that is extremely needed within the police. But today I would believe that it's not only your eye that identify. Do you have any kind of equipment to support you when when that work is done?
Yes, well, fingerprints involves a lot of facets. So you need to have a keen eye, a good eye, but you also need equipment. You need your eyeglass. We use automated technology. But when all is said and done, it's down to the person. It's down to that first checker. It's down to that person who's looking at that and with integrity. And it's not about manipulating systems. Systems are there to help us with speed. But it's always about that cautious detail. It's always about the detail. The goal for fingerprints is that it's going to go to court. The work that you do, there's a victim at the end of it. There's a process that needs to be gone through. It's about credibility. Fingerprint evidence can stand alone, in a case without any other evidence. And the process that we do has rigorous checking. So as a first checker, you would do your work. You'd have a second checker, and then you'd have an independent if there was anything complex. So, and in terms of fingerprints for myself as well, there are women in fingerprints, but there aren't many black females or women of colour. And so for me, it was always niche in terms of me going into this area. Many people thought I'd probably, something had happened to me because I took a large pay cut to train.
Mm,
But once you become an expert, it opens up different doors to you. But also it helps you to understand the world of police, and it's very complex. Why forensic evidence is required, why it has to be of a high nature, and then as the not many black females, you realise that that burden on you, it's a real one. So my goal in all that I do is to, you know, um, raise the awareness of
mm.
specialist services, raise the awareness of getting into roles like fingerprints, like forensics, and encourage people to take up that expert role too.
Yeah. Well, you touched on a topic that is really interesting when you're speaking about that. You're a black woman. You're a woman of color. Well, I got the color too, but when we speak about this, your skin is what people might would judge you, and then together with that, you're also a woman. So you got two things that you need to fight. Did
Mm.
you really have to fight both the gender and the color of your skin?
I did have to fight, and it wasn't overt, and that's the thing. Intersectionally, I'm also a disabled female, so
Mm,
I am a wheelchair user, and that came later on in life.
mm,
But my intersectionality for me, it's being disabled that I have a more issue with,
yeah.
in terms of people not understanding, simple things like just going to the shop and somebody will talk to the person who's with me rather than to me, and so because I'm in a wheelchair, I don't have any sense. And it's those kind of things that, it
Yes.
really, it makes shopping, it makes parking, it makes, all these, what we take for granted, even
Mm,
exiting my vehicle. I have a Mercedes Sprinter van with a lift, electronic lift. And when I come out of the back of my vehicle, if it's raining, I have to wait. People don't understand that, or they want to park their vehicle, they want to rush me to, so it's those little things. But funnily, my colour, my race, I remember getting the job, being told that I was successful. Um, and I remember sitting on my bed looking out my window and I said, Dad, and my dad had passed away some time. And I said, Dad, I've arrived. This was a role that was going to be taken up by me as a black female.
mm.
Um, when I went on the training day, there were no other black females around
No.
me. And as I've progressed in my journey, I have noticed different things. But what I try and do is balance it off against it's a privilege to be in
Mm,
that position.
mm,
And so I use it as an education tool.
mm,
Even the subliminal, racism, where people might unwittingly say things like, "Oh, this is your weather," because I'm black and it's sunny.
mm.
Well, I was born in Britain with the rain, and it's your weather too. So, it's kind of like getting people to understand the
Mm.
cultural context in how you
Yeah.
speak and making that intelligent conversation, and also respectfully educating people and
Mm,
learning from different cultures. I
mm,
worked with a couple of Asian women and we would have a similar conversation, but then I worked with women where English was their second language or third language.
mm,
And although it wasn't to do with colour, our cultures often came up, for
mm.
question.
Yeah.
And so our role was, and our remit wasn't to, if we needed to, we would challenge it respectfully.
Mm,
But our role was around education. And I think that's followed me through police and it's followed me in the criminal justice system that has disproportionality.
mm,
It's obvious that there's disproportionality and research has shown it. But our remit is to educate so that we don't make the same mistakes. And in our lifetime, we do see that authentic change. We
mm,
can't keep talking change and put an inclusion banner on it and hope that it will change. It's
mm.
got to be demonstrative. And anyone who knows me knows that I don't take it, just for
Yeah.
sake's sake. I like to know that I'm seeing that change. I remember one day I worked at Scotland Yard, so that was why I was having that conversation with my dad. Like Dad, Scotland Yard, the sign going round, if you can picture it. And I was going to be starting there on the Monday morning. Then I was going to be going off to Hendon. And I was just expecting that I would just see people who looked like me.
Yeah.
I just took it for granted and I didn't. And I was a bit heartbroken, and I didn't for the next week, and I didn't for the next month, and I didn't for the year. And I
Mm,
remember the first time I saw another black female, it was my long lost sister. And that shouldn't be in this day and age. You know, we should be able to see a diverse police force,
Mm,
and certainly a diverse forensic system, a diverse criminal justice system.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I think it's really important when you the police service or any kind of public service that mirror the population. And when I travel in UK, I can see that there is a large variation of
Mm,
people. And when you now got this color of women in your own profession, it's like when I was the only single woman to begin with. I remember that I only saw male, and they were all
mm,
tall, extremely tall, and I was there with my 168. And of course, I stood out, and you must
mm,
have felt the same, just to have someone that look like you.
mm,
And even though I don't have a twin, but when another woman stepped in, even though we had nothing else more than the gender in common, it was a game change in
absolutely.
many ways. Yeah. So Samantha, you also got a specific role in the Bedfordshire Police, culture intelligence lead of the Bedfordshire Police. Can you tell us about what is included into this function?
Yes, so I'm one of four cultural intelligence leads for Bedfordshire. It's a new role, and it's about how the Bedfordshire has taken this as its priority and its strategy about how we influence our culture, understand culture, and we change culture if necessary. So if we have a negative culture, educating people around the things that cause that negative culture to take place. As you've seen in the press, we've seen lots of things around policing,
Mm,
you know, behaviours that are not comely of upstanding officers and staff. You know, it's no different for staff too. We have professional standards and the code of ethics that we have to comply with. But on a moral level, it's about our cultures, how we, you know, how we keep our staff working for Bedfordshire Police.
mm,
And it's, if I put it in a simple term, the cultural intelligence is around that understanding. It's around how you would behave if you went to another country. If you're going to go on holiday, you're going to learn about the culture. You'll probably get a book and do a bit of reading, you
mm,
know, just to make sure that you're complying with the law and what have
mm,
you. And so cultural intelligence is based on four principles on our CQ, as we call it, action, our CQ knowledge, our CQ strategy, and our CQ drive. And the drive is around, I want to learn more about, you know, other cultures. And in our
mm,
in policing, we have an eclectic mix of different cultures across the nine protected characteristics. Everybody has a protected characteristic, and how how we ask for people from diverse backgrounds to come into policing. But what do we do with that diversity when it comes in? So understanding the
mm,
differences that we have in the organisation, the richness
mm,
of that difference. And if you're not sure, you know, what do you do to embrace that? How do you go about improving your knowledge? So the knowledge is around, our CQ knowledge is around the building your filing cabinet, if you like, you know, your CQ filing. So if I worked with somebody, for instance, as a police officer going into the Jewish community, knowing about their faith, knowing that their
mm,
Sabbath begins at a certain time, would you, unless critical, go into those areas to take a statement or an interview? You know, when those times coming out, obviously we can't forego what the law is, but you're just being mindful about those nuances, the differences in different cultures. And
mm.
let me say that not all cultures are the same. So within the Black community, not all Black communities are the same. You
Yeah.
have the African Caribbean community, the African community, mixed heritage community. So knowing those diversities and coming in, and we also need to know about different British systems and the Romani traveling gypsy communities. We have
Mm,
a plethora of communities that we need to be mindful of and aware of. And then building your strategy. How do I go about adapting or adopting? You know, how do I adapt to ensure that when I'm doing an interview and something's presented before me that I'm inclusive? Is it a disability? Does somebody have a neurodiverse condition? You know, that I need to be mindful of when I'm on an interview panel.
mm,
How am I making it conducive for single parents or solo or primary carers to have those opportunities? and then the action, how you put it into place.
Mm.
And this is, definitely the golden thread that is running through Bedfordshire. The whole forces and contractors are being having these seminars and workshops, and it's over 2 days. So you come for face to face, and then you have a follow up. So we can ensure that the journey is being continued, and we track that, and we are looking at measuring how CQ is making a difference in the organisation.
Wonderful. Is this the full-time work or is it part of your work?
This is full time, but I have
Mm.
lots of facets. So it's my full time job for Bedfordshire, and then Women of Colour in Policing, which I work alongside Sandra, the founder.
Mm.
And then I also work with Joint Protected Services. That's where I came from. And then when COVID hit, I was sent into another direction because you can't do forensics when out of that sealed environment. And it opened up another door for me into positive action and what we
Mm.
do in terms of positive action to make sure that our communities are reflected within policing, and also when we are recruiting, and even onboarding and retention, those pieces that keep staff, keep our people within the organisation.
Mm.
So there's lots of facets that I work on within policing.
Thank you. Well, you have had an absolute interesting work life, Samantha, and thank you for sharing this with us. I'm so happy that you joined us at Policing TV and hashtag She's IPA.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will soon be back with episode number 2, and we will continue to speak with Samantha and with her background and what she already told us about her, that looking for someone that looked the same as yourself, another woman of your own color, of your own skin, or with your own disability, or with your own, looking for someone with something that you can feel that you are connected. I think this is important. And that's the reason why we are going to talk with Samantha in episode number 2 about the movement, as it's called, Women of Color in Policing.